Thank you, Amrita. Hi, everyone. My name is Amelia Wesselink, and I'm a research assistant professor in the Department of Epidemiology at the School of Public Health. And my research focuses on how climate change is shaping human reproduction. Next slide, please. So there are several mechanisms through which climate change can affect the health of pregnant people and their babies. And these include both direct physical effects of climate change and also indirect pathways, including through disruption to healthcare and effects on mental health or food systems. And of course, all of this happens within social, economic, and cultural contexts. And in doing this research, I think it's really important to highlight the climate gap, the idea that we will not all feel the effects of climate change to the same extent, and that the ability to adapt to a changing climate is highly dependent on power and privilege. And so I just want to begin by highlighting that climate change is a reproductive justice issue and has the potential to exacerbate existing inequities in reproductive and perinatal health. Next slide, please. So what do we know about how climate change can affect pregnancy? There are a lot of studies that have found a link between climate hazards like heat and air pollution with pregnancy and birth outcomes. The figure that I have here is showing the results of a meta-analysis looking at the association between heat, ambient heat, and preterm birth. And birth outcomes are systematically collected and reported. They're available in big administrative databases and from medical records, and they're relatively easy to measure. So these outcomes have been widely studied. My research focuses more on some of the earlier reproductive events, like fertility and miscarriage, that are a bit more challenging to measure. So these outcomes are not available in big databases. They often occur before any kind of interaction with the medical system. And for the most part, they're not directly observable. And so validly studying these outcomes requires a very particular type of study design. Next slide, please. So most of my research uses data from two internet-based preconception cohort studies or time to pregnancy studies. And these two studies are PRESTO in the United States and Canada and SNART-Gravid and SNART-Foraldra in Denmark. And in these studies, we recruit couples who are trying to conceive without fertility treatment. We follow them throughout the preconception period, throughout their pregnancies, and into the postpartum period. And with this type of study, we first of all can prospectively measure time to pregnancy and other reproductive outcomes. And then second, because these participants are pregnancy planners, they're using home pregnancy tests early and often. And this allows for more complete ascertainment of miscarriages, particularly early miscarriages. And so with funding from the NIEHS, we've linked our participant data to data on air pollution and meteorological variables. Next slide, please. So this is just a snapshot of a couple of the projects that we're working on. So in the top left, this shows a figure from a paper that came out earlier this month, where we show that particulate matter, including both PM2.5 and PM10, is associated with reduced fecundability, which is a sensitive marker of fertility. And this was in the Danish preconception cohort study. In the top right are results from a very preliminary analysis where we see an increase in risk of miscarriage with increasing ambient temperature in the PRESTO study. And then finally, at the bottom, we received pilot funding from the School of Public Health to study personal temperature exposure in PRESTO using these Kestrel temperature and humidity sensors, which we send to participants through the mail. And this project really brings us back to the social context and the justice issues that I raised at the beginning of this. The idea that on hot days, not everyone feels the heat to the same extent. And so moving beyond ambient exposures to look at personal exposures will allow us to both conduct better etiologic research, but also to identify who is most at risk, which can really help in the development of targeted interventions. Next slide, please. And just a big thanks to all of my collaborators. Thank you.